Hello, everyone on LinkedIn, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube on the replay. Welcome to this special episode of the Work Culture Debates. Unfortunately, Shannel is somewhere across the world vacationing right now and did not bring the rest of us. So Shannel is not here with us for this live debate on entitled "The Robots Are Coming: How to Navigate the AI Revolution." However, fortunately for us and for all of you, we have a subject matter expert here with us today, Simon Anderson. Simon is a futurist, but let me have Simon introduce himself, and then the panel can introduce ourselves. Simon, tell us who you
Yes, good
are.
afternoon, everyone, and good morning, wherever you are. So, as David said, I am a futurist. A lot of people have no idea what that means. But as a futurist, I help leaders and organizations move beyond resilient so they can become future ready. So, the idea is not just to survive another technological change or weather another storm in your industry. It's to help you use foresight so you can avoid the worst of the challenges coming, but also so you can capitalize on new opportunities that are created by rapid change. So the big misconception with futurism that you're trying to predict the future. So I'm not trying to predict the future because that's
Hmm.
impossible. I'm trying to help you create your preferred future.
Great, and welcome, Simon. We're looking forward to having you add your expertise. Britni, introduce yourself.
I'm Britni Eisenmann. I'm with Stokefire. I find and fix stubborn barriers for organizations so that they can put their resources and their talent behind mission achievement instead of having to allocate those to hidden tripwires that keep them behind.
Great, and Deborah.
Hi, I'm Deborah Collazo. I'm the founder and principal consultant of DMC Consulting here in Puerto Rico. I help small and medium businesses remove barriers related to culture, structure, and human resource management so that they can grow effectively.
And I'm David Shar, president and founder of Illuminate PMC, where we take complicated psychological principles of what makes your people tick at work and how to motivate employees, etc. And we break that down. I give keynote addresses, workshops, trainings to help organizations motivate their people, create burnout-proof work cultures, and make work better for everyone. So welcome to this debate over AI. Everything that I see right now is AI, right? Like everybody's talking about it, but sometimes I feel like we struggle to understand exactly what that means and what that should mean for our organization, or maybe shouldn't. So, Simon, we invited you as a guest into our debate, but I was hoping that you could introduce what the heck we're talking about when we talk about this AI revolution.
Yeah, AI can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. There's a lot of different forms of artificial intelligence, like neural networks and machine learning. So the way I kind of think about AI is just machines doing things based on input that they weren't specifically programmed to do.
Mm.
So, for example, like your GPS system, if you're using your GPS in your car and you're driving around, you don't have someone that's like in a data center like saying turn right, turn left. Oh no, now they're going to go over here. Turn around. It's the machine creating new output based on input without someone explicitly programming it to do that. So that's not like a scientific definition. That's just kind of the working definition that I use to help people think about this.
So, how does this translate into sort of tools that businesses can actually implement or put into use?
So it's anytime you have a variety of inputs, like with any business, and you can have a system that can create outputs without human intervention, that's when you start to find applications in business. So, I mean, there's thousands of different examples, but it's starting off as more like task replacement. So if you think of your job, you have hundreds of different things you do, in a given week, probably in your job. So we're slowly kind of chipping away individual tasks that AI can replace the human doing. And this has been going on for decades. When you think of everything from spreadsheets to, I mean, it's just been going on for a really long time. We're just kind of slowly chipping away tasks and then also creating new tasks that only humans can do. So it's this kind of evolution of replacing certain tasks for computers to make our lives easier, make us more productive, but also creating new things for humans to do as well.
That makes a lot of sense. So I came across a recent study that 64% of executives said that they're excited about AI, whereas 46% of employees said that they're scared of AI, and this new revolution. So, Simon, what is this scary or is this exciting? Which side do you fall on? And then I want to open it up to the rest of the panel as to what we do about this gap between executives and the rest of their employees.
Yeah, I think like with most new technologies, it's both exciting and scary. There are good uses and bad uses depending on how people use it. As a futurist, you know, I've been doing this now for 12 years. I've been thinking about AI and using AI tools my entire time being a futurist. Right now, things are changing so quickly. The cycles are compressing so much. In all candor, I see a lot more downside than upside for most of this stuff. So we can, of course, go into that more. But I'm not a doomer. I'm also trying to stay away from the hype cycles of AI. But we are facing some significant challenges based on how fast these things are converging and mixing and remixing, but also how short these time cycles are. When you have ChatGPT went to 100 million users in 2 months, we just don't have time to adapt to these changes like we did in the past with previous technologies.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, though, we see this gap. And so, Britni, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on why this gap exists and what the issues could be with this gap existing between executives. Like I said, 64% saying they're excited about this compared to employees where only 39% say that they're excited about this and 46% actually say that they're scared about it. What is that gap? What's the potential impact of that gap, and how can organizations protect themselves from any downside here?
Yeah, especially if you have a visionary that's at the top of the company, they see like after all of these cycles are done and we've kind of arrived to the usable way to implement AI, whatever kind of organization you are, they see the benefits. And a lot of that is bottom line, taking away, tipping away at tasks. So in my local SHRM chapter, when I've been having meetings with all these HR managers and CHROs, I'm gently saying like, there's a lot of what you do that's on the more conservative side, like as far as like what's the law, how do we implement this, that like if you're really good at that, that skill will do nothing for you in a few years. If you're not a strategic partner, a lot of your job is going to end up in AI. And so for CEOs, they not only see where this can take the organization and their mission, but for a lot of them, their job isn't at risk because so much of their work is cognitive, visionary, connecting ideas, sifting through things to measure what this is going to do for us in 3 years. Employees don't have any idea how AI is going to be implemented in their organization. They have very little control over that. And they have no idea how much of their job will be taken away.
Right. Or if their job completely will be taken away.
Yes. And what does that mean? Do they need to start figuring stuff out now? Do they hang on with the company? They try to jump into a whole new lane of work. All of these unknowns, and they have to decide just as quickly as stuff is evolving.
Right. So there were a series of studies where they found that wherever there was AI, or even when people were primed to think about robotics and AI, that employees' sense of job insecurity increased. So, Deborah, what do you do about those employees who are feeling that job insecurity? How do you fix that, as opposed to or do we just say, all right, well, they're right, they're going to be gone soon anyway?
No, do not go with that last one. I think I have a small delay, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try to fix that after I say this. So don't go with the second one, right? I think what organizations need to do right now is acknowledge that this is happening, right? Just name it, give it a place and time, and actually speak to their employees about it. You can send a memo, you can have a town hall meeting, you can have separate meetings for each department, but you definitely need to address it in a way that employees say, okay, they are thinking about this. And so they will communicate when the time is right, when they know exactly what this means for us. Because the truth is that right now, not a lot of organizations know what it means for them yet. As Simon said, the learning cycles are just too short at this point. So I do think that there need to be specific people in the organization really thinking about this and strategy wise how they're going to use it and implement it so that they can communicate as fast as possible to the employees, especially if it's a tech heavy company. You should be doing this. Like this should be your your operating procedure. And so just giving those employees a little bit of time to just naming it and really giving them that certainty that we are working on it. And to be honest, we're not sure how this is going to look for our company just yet. I'm not sure there are many companies that can say, yeah, we know exactly what this is going to do for our company. I don't think any company is there yet. But acknowledging that uncertainty definitely helps keep employees at ease. And again, having just at least one person in the organization, depending on how big it is, just really thinking about these things, learning and bringing back more information to the company and seeing how they're going to adapt to it, I think is a great place to start. Maybe Simon can tell us where to go next.
Yeah,
Right.
those are great insights. That transparency piece is so important to say, we are looking at these tools. Um, there will be some changes, but we're going to try to find the best way to use them for our organization, also for our team. From the culture perspective, it also gives companies an opportunity where they can help their employees train and learn these new tools. If you're an employee, if you have an open conversation about these new tools that are available and you find a great tool for your company, you bring that to your leadership. If they adopt it or even test it out, maybe you can kind of spearhead that initiative and test it out and try it for a specific problem you're having or something. But that also helps the employees feel like they're leveling their skills up too in this new world. So if they do get displaced, those skills are usable somewhere else in a new role with a new company. I really encourage every employee to audit your resume and look at all the different skills and experience you have and see what still applies and maybe where your gaps are to start proactively working on those with these new tools that are now available.
Right. So, but Simon, looking back at this idea of should we be excited, should we be scared, maybe we should be both. Solomon asks, do you all think that there is more value in investing in training people in prompt engineering and working with AI, or more value in getting leaner and relying on mostly AI? Which I think is a great question. Is it that we really do need to reskill and upskill these people, or are we going to have less people employed full time? Are we going down that path where we're going to have to introduce a universal basic income and change the way we interact with work and how many people actually work for a living? Is that going to change? Is this doom and gloom? The sky is falling, or is this like when we introduce the computer or the internet
Or the car?
Or the car.
car?
Yeah. I think it depends what your goals are. To answer Solomon's question, if you want to retain the best and the brightest, and even if you do have to shrink your workforce, you'd better be training them on what they need to do. I think all four of us run our own companies, which means we are both kind of employees and executives, have a lot of control over where we're going. I'm usually a late adopter. I had like an iPhone 4 until the iPhone 12 came out. That's generally how I go. In my work, I would much rather go deep, anchor everything to who you are so that you go forward in alignment and can handle the storms that come at you, rather than sprinting out ahead. But with AI, I know it is a massive risk to my company if I don't figure out how to do stuff. So as soon as I got onto Chat GPT-4, I realized I've got to figure out how to use this now because I need to know exactly what I can and can't lean on AI to do. So very slowly, I'm building my own chatbot, partially because I really need this for my website. I thought I was going to have to pay someone to do it. Now I just need to learn the skills and I can do it. It's all out there. I just need to know the order to drop things in and have my FAQs ready to go. So I think if you want to keep the best and the brightest that can carry you through the next storms, if you want to stay out front, like Simon teaches organizations how to do, then you're going to have to learn prompt engineering and you're going to have to get familiar with the way that AI works and the way it responds with each iteration.
Could we define what prompt engineering is? Because for Luddites like me, anytime you put engineering in a term, I start losing my mind. So what, and getting really intimidated. What is prompt engineering specifically for those who don't know?
This feels like a Simon question.
Yeah. Okay. Let me. So, in my view, prompt engineering is just the latest version of how we talk to our technology. So, just very briefly, like when you think about when computers first came out, you had to speak the computer's language very, very specifically, like run prompt command or whatever. And if you missed a period or something, it would totally screw up the response. Then we moved to graphic user interface where you could click on like a picture of a printer and then that would print. And then natural user interface where you could say, hey Google, how do I get to the restaurant or whatever? And you could just speak in your own language. Prompt engineering is another version of speaking in the language of the chatbot, or of the large language model. And so you're trying to get the best results by asking the best question. So it's how are you positioning like your questions either in like visual creator like Midjourney or like ChatGPT or Bard or any of these tools. But to me, that's just a transitional period where pretty soon I think prompt engineering becomes less and less important as it becomes easier for the computer to understand what you're looking for just in regular language without having to learn like the really specific ways to ask it to do something for you. That's almost kind of like going back to DOS where you have to ask it really specifically what you want to get the output that you want. I think as these get better and better and better, it's going to require less and less prompt engineering and more just natural language communication.
Right. So I guess another question would be is if prompt engineering is going to become easier and easier or less relevant, what happens? Are there industries that are going to completely go away because of this? I'm thinking specifically industries and also positions, silos within business. I'm thinking anybody who's in copywriting or something like that. Is that going to go away? Is there going to be no need for that anymore? Yeah, Simon. Oh, man.
I'm opening up the room to everyone. I can go off on AI for hours, so don't get me started. So let's.
Well, I have a response then, but I'm curious what Simon has to say. Yeah, it seems like that's where it's headed eventually. However, I run almost all my copy through AI to see what it thinks, or if I get stuck on describing something because my sentence structure is horrendous, both in speaking and in writing, then I will run it through AI. And it can do things like if I say, write me a door opener for a COO that was interested in what I offer, but now he's ghosted me. And it will respond with stuff that like typically a COO will care about. However, it cannot figure out how to compel to the end that I want in my voice. So it's still not to the point where it has learned, at least for me, how to get where I want it to go. I still have to put the whole thing through my own model that I use for organizations. So I use that as some great ideas, type of stuff that a COO will care about, type of stuff that can get in the way of responding to someone. But if I want it to sound authentic at all, and the way that our conversations did go, then I cannot copy and paste. It'll make no sense, and I'll be creating a barrier for myself.
Yeah, I think there's this new movie where there's these two people are it's like some sort of dating weird movie where two people have robots who are replacing them and going out. Do you guys know about this movie? It's like they're two robots. It's in the future, maybe like a month from now at the rate we're going. But you could have like a robot sort of be your, so you could be two places at one time. And if you feel awkward about dating, you send your robot out to date and it's just a replica of you. But I think hilarity ensues when both parties are sending their robots to date. And so it's just two robots dating each other. I'm just wondering how quickly we're getting to this point where it's not going to matter. Like your email is going to be read by somebody else's AI. You're writing an AI. They're having their AI summarize it, and then they're having their AI write a response. That's already built into one of my email programs.
Well, that introduces the idea of the digital twin.
Oh, go ahead, Simon.
No, go ahead, Deborah.
No, I just wanted to say that that in terms of two worlds that I see that are just very deeply being affected by artificial intelligence is obviously technology, but also marketing in general. I know that David used the example of a copywriter, but if you're at all into social media, you know that algorithms change all the time as well. So marketing is one of those areas that needs to be on the forefront of technology all the time. And it's never gonna stop being important. Like marketing is always gonna be very important because that's how you get to consumers. That's how you get to businesses. If like for example our businesses, but you just I feel like AI and marketing are always competing for the new thing, and how you market today is not at all how you marketed last year or even 6 months ago, like with the appearance of trend, with the appearance of AI and how it's really impacting how you develop content. It's just two areas where I see that they're both racing to get somewhere that I'm not sure what's that's going to look like in the future. But what I wanted to say is that it's not going to affect jobs so much as it's going to affect the skills needed to do the job. Right. So a marketing manager is always going to be necessary, but their job description is probably going to look a little bit different moving forward than what it does right now. A copywriter is always going to be necessary to the degree that you need to filter it through the culture of your organization or the strategy that you want to do. I feel like culture and strategy are still two things that AI is going to get better at, but they're not there yet. And I always think there's going to be a human behind it to really get it to where you want to go. Like, so for example, business strategy, marketing strategy, technological strategy is something that's always going to be, it's always going to need a human. So we just need to make sure that we upskill. So to answer Solomon's question, I always think that upskilling when it comes to technology is going to be a must. And it's going to become more and more of what can I learn next rather than I learned this and let me just use it for a whole year. It's always going to be like, what can I learn next? What can I learn next? So I think employees definitely should be doing that resume audit that Simon mentioned. I think that's a great idea. Just pick something new that you can learn and just learn it because it's going to be useful in this coming future.
Deborah, that's a really cool point about needing that human touch, but us behind the culture. But I would push back and say, aren't we missing that in so many organizations already? You wonder, is there a human on the other side of this? And AI. So
True.
I have received emails where I did not know how to interpret this, and I knew that I was maybe jumping to some conclusions, and I ran them through ChatGPT to see what ChatGPT's take is, thinking here's something that's completely objective, although we'll talk about that as well, whether it's actually completely objective, but put it through there and it would pull out these things. Of course, I was able to lead it as well. If it doesn't tell me what I want to hear, then I add a little bit more context about the person and whatever until it agrees with me. But that's my own specific issue. But maybe these robots can actually help us empathize and communicate in an empathetic way, especially when you have executives who might struggle with that. To put it through this tool might help them. I don't know.
It's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about it that way.
So Solomon said, Britni, it can get a lot better if you feed it tons and tons of things that you've written that communicate the tone that you want. I know that Simon taught me that early on, that you should just have these prompts and remember this conversation and things like that you just enter. I now have like a whole Evernote folder of prompts that I like throw into ChatGPT to catch it up to speed, depending on what I want to talk to it about. So, okay, but on the human end of this, the same study that talked about job insecurity increasing as there was more AI in the area or when people were prompted to think about AI, et cetera. The job insecurity was also found to couple with things like burnout. and increased. I think it was increased incivility at work or counterproductive work behaviors at least. Um, we know with change management, there's this huge issue of uncertainty. You want to try to eliminate as much uncertainty as you can, but Simon's a futurist, and he came in here and said, "I can't tell you the future." That's a lot of uncertainty, especially when there's like all of this. When it's changing so rapidly. My chat GPT was connected to the internet and then it disconnected from the internet now. And it's like, there's so much uncertainty about where this is going, how this is going to impact industry and how this is going to impact my organization, etc. So how do you protect your people from this? How do you protect them? How do you add certainty where there is uncertainty? Because trust is the most valuable asset you can have in a business. So how do you tell people, yeah, it's going to be okay, and here's where we're going with this, when in reality we can't really know?
Simon?
I think that's what you start with. You can't really know. Excuse me. When you think of like from an employee's perspective, they've just been through this fast forward digital transformation with the pandemic for a lot of businesses where they moved a lot of things either remote or digital that wasn't digital before. That was a ton of change just thrown at them, in addition to all the challenges they're experiencing in their regular lives with the pandemic. Now there's this like next innovation fatigue where they're just constantly thinking about what's the next new thing that I have to learn, new system I have to learn, or something that could replace part of what I do. So I think transparency is key. I don't think just saying, oh, everything's going to be okay is the right answer, because we're not qualified to say that. But I think what you can do is say, from an organizational perspective, we're going to be transparent with you as much as we can be, but we're going to help you. We're going to help equip you with the trainings and everything we can do to help you as an employee, not just an employee of this organization, to be prepared for this fast changing future. And I think when you get everyone on board, like we're all part of the team, things are changing very quickly. There's a ton of uncertainty. We recognize that. But how can we as an organization prepare everyone within the team for this future? And there are a lot of different ways to do that, but I think that honesty is really key, and that transparency as much as possible is really key.
Yeah, making
I
it
love that.
concrete for AI is trickier than with other things because the end line keeps moving, right? So if we just say, oh, we're not going to fire you because of AI, that's much different than like by Q3 of next year, all of our employees will have gone through this training to understand this app or this AI functionality, like helping your employees see, like, we're not looking out 10 years into the future. We know things are changing. We're with you. We're walking you at least to this point, and then we'll have a new goal. I think that can help. I mean, that's how we do change management, right? Bite by bite. AI is different because it's huge and it's sprinting and it's, expanding out in every single direction. But that doesn't mean that our organization has to take the biggest bites. But if we walk our employees, even if it's smaller than we'd like, then that can help them see we see you.
Yeah, I agree with that. Lisa says mental health is going to be critical for employees as well. And we did just go through COVID and everything else that 2020 and beyond has brought. And we're in this mental health crisis. And now we have another boogeyman. We have this AI uncertainty. The robots are coming. Most of us were raised on movies where AI like literally took over the world and tried to kill us all. And I hear this on the news like being discussed in reality now. It seems like this is just another layer and another reason why we do need to invest in mental health. Is there a way for AI to help with that? Oh, sorry, Deborah, you were about to say something.
No, I just wanted to ask Simon because just for everybody who's watching this, you said that you help organizations like go further from resilience and be future ready. So what would the organization being resilient, how would that look like, and how would it look like for them to be future ready when it comes to AI? Like, how would those two be different?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the big difference, the way I define it, is resilience is more reactive, or future readiness is more proactive. So resilience is just trying to weather the next storm and just survive another day. Where with future readiness, you're actively using foresight to spot some of the bigger challenges so you can miss them altogether, at least anticipate the possibilities, to know what to expect when something could happen or what could be possible. But then also look for opportunities too. So it's not just about surviving. It's about also like what opportunities are these new technologies creating that we can use to make our culture better, make our company more profitable, make a better work environment, be more competitive in the market. So very briefly, I have this framework that I use with my clients called the Future Ready Formula: Attention, Anticipation, Action. And so it's looking at the edges, so looking at the technologies that are just kind of not really affecting your industry, but just starting to emerge, and then thinking about like taking the anticipation, the next step, and saying, what if, what then? So there's this new chat app coming out. What if this gets really, what if you're talking about a year ago or something? What if this is really big and it gets better and better and better? What then? How could this impact my career, this industry, our product offerings, the way we train? I mean, there's all these different ways to look at it. How we handle HR issues that come up within the company. And then, of course, you have to have a bias toward action. So if you're paying attention to the edges, you're anticipating the possibilities, then you can start taking actions now while you still have time to do something about it. So that's the critical difference. It's not just like making a strong organization that can handle another storm. It's how do you avoid the worst of the storms, be ready for the ones you can avoid, and also spot the opportunities that are being created by rapid change.
Okay, and then, so my question would be, where, like, the companies that you supported, let's say last year, doing this type of work, where are they now, and what could you say to companies who are right here that for the next year, what should they expect? Like, can you give us a little bit of that time? Because I know foresight is 2020, but I think it should be really interesting to see a futurist talking about something like a year ago and how that came about.
She's holding your feet to the fire, Simon.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I used to have on my previous website, I'd keep all my old articles, like right or wrong, whatever I was talking about, like, wow, I was way off on that, and I was way off in the future of education 15 years ago. So one thing I'm very bad at is tracking my previous clients. I know they might bring me back to speak at another event, but I just typically do keynotes. I don't do like long consulting engagements typically. So I don't have like a whole list of, I told them this and they did this. I can tell you though, there've been many, many times where I see something in the news or in one of my futurist groups or something, and I think, boy, I told my clients that 5 years ago. I wonder if they use that idea, because they'd be really far ahead right now if they use that. Or, wow, I was way off on that. I hope they just use my insight as one more perspective and did what they're, but yeah, I need to start doing a lot more of these, getting these real case studies and things. I typically go to a keynote, and then if they invite me back, I'll speak again and follow up with them. But the thing is, again, I'm not trying to predict a specific future for them. I'm trying to shift their mindset so they can, because even if I was able to 100% get them caught up on all the technologies, I walk off the stage and then the world keeps moving. So I'm trying to help them have that mindset shift so then they can continue to like be future ready regardless of the new technologies that keep emerging, because that's going to keep happening, indefinitely. So,
and that's part of a futurist, right? Like risk is part of it.
Yeah, that's absolutely
right. I imagine if you're not giving some wrong advice sometimes, then you're doing your job wrong, right? I mean, because you're not supposed to get out there and tell them what we know to be true, what's absolutely coming down the pipeline. You're supposed to be making these predictions. It's forecasting. It's a shame Shannel's not here today because she loves forecasting. But forecasting is a risky business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really about the mindset piece. So it's not I know for sure the tools work, and I know the practices work, and the behaviors work, and the mindset shift works, and then they can apply that to their own industry, as things keep evolving.
So if somebody is not currently using AI or these AI tools, or not incorporating it into their organization, in change management, often it's having to convince your employees that not changing is not the best option, that the world's changing around you. So we could change in this direction or not change, but not changing is also a risky choice. So what happens if an organization is not getting on the AI bandwagon, but they're thinking, I'm hearing more and more about this, maybe I need to, where do they start dipping their toes in? I assume that it depends on the organization. Yeah. Britni.
Yeah. Okay. Here's where I see your biggest risk If you're just kind of like I usually do, just kind of waiting to see how things pan out and then taking the best of what's out there, you are handing over all of your control about how AI will be used in your organization, because it will be used. This morning, I had coffee with an organizational leadership professor, and he told me like all of the college students use AI. At the end of the semester, he took one kid's everything he had turned in. He'd only caught him once, making a whole paper out of Chat GPT, but he put all of his stuff through like a new program that had come out. 100% of what this kid turned in was written by Chat GPT. Nothing was what this kid had written. So that means this kid got a passing grade. You know, he's going on, he's doing this in all of his classes. There's no way this kid isn't doing this in all his classes. He's going to get hired by someone. Your 20-somethings are using AI. If you haven't thought about it, that means you have no policies, you have no procedures, you have not tied how you use AI to your values and your mission. You have no control. You could so easily get pulled off in a direction that pulls you away from your goals, your KPIs, and your mission, where you're headed, if you don't at least understand what it can do and at least build some guardrails, even if you're not ready to start sprinting with actually implementing it and using it.
Yeah, I was in a similar position 2 weeks ago. So I teach graduate level IO psychology students, and I had a lesson where I taught them AI. Like a lot of them, they were first introduced to Chat GPT in this lesson. And I'm thinking in my head, the risk versus reward here. I can't tell you how many, although they probably could, how many times I said, now don't use this to write your papers, right? But that's a big piece of it. You have to talk about the ethics and how to use these things responsibly. But in order to do that, you need to talk about it. So within schools and within organizations, you need to be training the right way to use these things in order to help people avoid the wrong ways to use these things. And for me, I think that it's essential that they know how to use these tools. It's right now I'm teaching a talent development course for these students, and I mean, ChatGPT alone could cut the time it takes you to put together a training program. It could cut it in half, if not more. But you've got to be using it. You've got to be using it the right way. So if you don't adopt this, you're going to be left behind. It's going to take you so many more resources in order to accomplish the same thing that your competitors are accomplishing. But it's like, growing up and being told, Wikipedia, you can't cite Wikipedia. And now we all think of Wikipedia as this great evil, but
no calculators.
Right. Or calculators, but they've got their place, but we need to be careful and ethical in how we use it and understand the limitations of the tools themselves.
It's funny, the drop off in
also
numbers for ChatGPT after the semester ended, like it had its first downturn in users. And I think it's because all the students are like on a summer break right now. And so they...
100%. 100%.
Yeah. Deborah.
I was also going to say that just to always consider, as you're implementing in your organizations right now, just to always consider that legislation on this will come, but it'll come later, probably like 6 months to a year if we're being like super hopeful. But that will come, right? And also the ethics of it all will come, but it'll also be later. So just being mindful of where we are in space, where we just don't know a lot about it, or how it's going to shape our future. Definitely use it, but know that legislation and ethical concerns will come later, not right now.
Right. And you don't want to be the guinea pig. You don't want to be that case. Although it'd be cool to have your name, being talked about in law schools forever, but maybe depending on which side of that you're on.
Thank you.
But, to go through that is not cheap. Even if you end up winning, I don't think people want to be part of that. So, Simon, are you familiar with any of these, like where we're going in terms of the legal and legislative issues with AI?
Yeah, I apologize. My AI camera is going a little crazy right now. It's like refocusing. I'm trying to turn off the tracking here. Uh, uh, so there are quite a few different, in, like you mentioned, Deborah, the legislation always significantly trails the technology innovation, especially when you think of like Congress. Most of the people in Congress, I mean, remember the internet is a series of tubes comment from 15, 20 years ago? Like most of these people in Congress have no clue how this stuff works and are not searching out the people who can tell them. They don't have a huge vested interest in one way or another. Um, so yeah, there's legislation either from people suing because it's using their information, like music artists and writers and comedians, and there's also legislation of as far as the ethics of it. My view as a futurist typically is that the technology is moving way too quickly to really legislate anything that has any kind of meaningful impact because people are going to still find a way to use it. Um, just one quick example, like the whole idea when all these people signed on this thing to stop ChatGPT for 6 months of development. As a futurist, to me, that's the most insane approach to this because, like, okay, everyone who signed the agreement is going to like stop potentially, say they're stopping development. Well, China and other countries don't care at all about their agreement and are just going to get 6 months ahead. So I think that's kind of the part of it too. Like, even if we did sweeping legislation that could impact, I certainly agree with you, Deborah, that definitely could impact usage for U.S. corporations and businesses doing business in the U.S. No one else is going to listen to our regulations, and they're just going to continue doing whatever they're going to do and potentially get way ahead of us if we. But there's also real downsides to not regulating it too. So I certainly see both sides of that.
Yeah, Lisa asks, is there any occupation that won't be affected by AI? Psychology, etc. Let's hope IO psychology. I think there may be benefits to nonverbal speaking individuals. Interesting.
Here's my take on that real quickly, because this is a question I get asked constantly. Like the big thing in futurism is, is it going to create more jobs or get rid of more jobs? And then what jobs will be left that AI can't do? Without exception, virtually every industry I've worked with, everyone in the industry always says, oh yes, it's advancing super quickly, but it could never do my job. I hear that in every industry over and over and over and over again. The industries that I think are the last to be disrupted by and replaced by AI at some point in the future is the trades. So if you get to a point where you have a robot that can come in your house and diagnose your plumbing problem and physically fix it, all bets are off for every other industry. Like everything else has been replaced by that point. So, but again, the last point in this, I don't think it's so much of a one for one, like the AI completely replaces your job next year or something. It's the AI completely or slowly, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. It's just taking piece by piece by piece of what you do. And then what's left that just humans can do has to get reorganized into a new role, which we're already seeing at an organizational level when how many people do you know feel like they have to do like the jobs of like 4 people right now? Mm-hmm. I've talked to so many people like, oh, they laid off these 2 people, but now I'm doing their jobs. I have this new tool that I use, but I'm still way overworked. Companies are like, hey, you have all these new tools now. You can do the job that we had 3 other people doing before. So, okay, I'll get off my tirade on this, but that's my that's my take on that.
That's why we have you to go on your tirade.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
And I hadn't thought about the traits aspect. Like definitely, like once that is like optimized or automated, all the other jobs don't even stand a chance. I really appreciated that point of view.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts from your professional experience? I'd love to hear like your insights in this because it's you're in a different area than I am, and I'd love to hear what you're seeing in the field and what you think about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I do can be replaced by AI. The one thing it can't do is some of the deeper work I do. So we customize everything to clients and we drill down to exactly who they are at their core, even if the market shifted or they had different employees, like what will never change about you, and then anchoring everything to that. All that anchoring can be done by AI as soon as you identify what's going on underneath the surface. So I'm often brought in for retention problems. I can build you a retention solution. AI can build you a retention solution. Retention isn't your problem, it's your symptom. So the model I use gets underneath to find out what's actually causing all of these symptoms that you see in your organization and then pulling you into alignment. the findings is the only thing I can do that AI can't. As soon as you have the findings from me, like, stop paying me, go ahead and feed that into AI, and it'll tell you what solution is going to be best. Like, assuming you can ask it the right way, that it prompt engineering. That's where I see. I think there's very little that consultants can do that AI can't do, and I think pretty soon a lot of it, absolutely, AI will be able to do this.
Yeah. They now have a new tool where they have AI record teachers in the classroom and then
Okay.
coach the teachers. So it gives the teachers feedback, and they saw like increases. I forget what the exact metrics were that they were measuring, but they saw increases in um, uh, teacher efficacy through doing this, through using this, which is pretty cool because it can get down to the nitty gritty. But I think of an organization that I once worked with where the client brought us in because he had a strong feeling that everybody in his organization were conflict avoiders, and therefore nothing was ever getting settled, and it would blow up, etc. We went into the organization and we worked and we did focus groups and interviews and surveyed, and what we found pretty clearly was that there was no large contingency of conflict avoiders within the organization. But what those people told us, his employees told us, was that, when it's something that we can't handle for whatever reason, we don't bring it to him because he's a conflict avoider. He doesn't take care of anything. So he was so close to the problem, but it was like he just needed a mirror. And I think that, in the pre-show, Shannel and I got into it about how important it is to have the best answers versus have the best questions. And I think one thing that knowledge workers of all type really need to double down on is being the ones that have the best questions. We need to know, how to get to the core of the problem, because all of the answers exist already. They're out there, and ChatGPT makes them easier to access than searching, peer-reviewed literature for hours or days. But it's there, and it's been there already. But being able to diagnose, I think, is really what's critical.
I agree with
Lisa
David.
mentioned
I
one of
think.
our.
Go ahead, Britni.
I'll just say this. Okay, so Lisa, one of our listeners earlier mentioned mental health, and the post-pandemic mental health issues are largely tied to loneliness, which is one thing AI won't be able to actually fix. It can make us feel less lonely, but it can't be a human on the couch next to us. So I think that would be a unique. What?
He says he can counter it.
Counter it. Do it.
No, Deborah was going to say something. I don't want to.
No, counter that, and then I'll say my thing.
I'll just counter that with an example. And I don't fully disagree with you, Britni, but I think there are a lot of. I don't think the AI is competing against having your perfect partner sitting next to you on the couch. I think the AI is competing against having no one sitting next to you on the couch. And I think that's where the huge disconnect is. So, for example, there is a app called Replica that came out many years ago. An engineer lost her best friend in a car accident, I think, when they were both young. And she missed him so much, she fed all of his texts into a really rudimentary AI that, way back 10 years ago. And so she could text with him, and it was using his words and his phrases. Well, that just blew up and turned into a huge company that everyone just loved to have like their AI friend. And it eventually turned into AI dating. So like your AI girlfriend, you had this AI girlfriend or boyfriend. About 5 or 6 months ago, there was some kind of government regulation in Italy where they had to turn that part of the app off. And it was unbelievable. They had to post a suicide hotline on the Reddit page. People were absolutely freaking out. It was just like their significant other just died, and they had no warning. Else it was just taken away from them. But the reason I bring this point up is that relationship was so meaningful to them that it created massive mental health issues and they had to turn it back on eventually, because it was like, and this is the brick phone version of this. We are at a very early stage of this. And so again, I don't think you're competing against the real life perfect or even great potential significant other. I think for a lot of people, there is either no significant other or no really good friend. Um, just with how things are getting more polarized now, we're separating, getting more lonely, more away from each other. I think you're competing, against someone who's just really struggling, just kind of on their own with very few meaningful relationships. And all of a sudden, you introduce this thing that can communicate with them, and then you throw in things like VR and things where they can actually see them in their space, like an AR headset or something like Apple's new headset. If you fast forward a few years, this could be a very different conversation about people being in meaningful relationships with their AIs, for good and
So
for bad.
dangerous.
I don't say this
Yeah, what
is
does that do
really
to
positive at
society?
all.
It's
So, anyways,
so
that's my.
dangerous.
Can we do a
Yeah.
whole fight about that?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just thinking about just the psychological evolution, I want to say, that entails. And yeah, I'm still not there. I'm just saying that it's completely different from like the ones that study psychology, right? Like we're used to human, right, connection, and we've seen the studies, and you need that like physical touch, you need like proximity, and all these things that we know about human psychology are literally changing based on what you just said, Simon, because of AI. So this is not only going to impact our work, our jobs, it's also been impacting, as Simon just said, for a long time, apparently, the way that we relate to each other. And that's just a whole other conversation.
Yeah. You think people
Wow.
complain about going into the office now if they've got their best friend or girlfriend virtually right at home with them? They're like, why do I need? Or you got your coworkers virtually there, right? I mean, you could create that. I think Meta tried to do that. I don't know how successful they've been so far with that, but I think that was part of the idea. Lisa asks, regarding individuals who are nonverbal, stroke, autism, Parkinson's, TBI, etc., do you know of ways that AI can help them communicate? That's a great question.
Yeah, that's already happening. And part of it is there's a lot of work on like Neuralink is one version of it, but there's a lot of work on actual physical brain interfaces where the AI can decode. I think it was a few months ago, someone with Parkinson's were able to decode what they were thinking, sort of, like so they could communicate. And then they can even, I don't remember which company it was, but they even would show someone a picture, a verbal person, just for a test, show them a picture, and then the AI would recreate the picture that they saw, and it's getting like scarily close to being able to literally read your mind.
Wow.
So people with like locked-in syndrome and things like that, I think we are seeing some one of the few areas I'm super positive about or excited about AI and optimistic is healthcare. It's creating some incredible breakthroughs, including helping people that are nonverbal, decoding their literal brainwaves to communicate with them.
Wow. So I know we're getting toward the end, but on this topic of inclusion, because this opens it up for a whole lot of people, potentially. But I know that there's controversy within AI and big data and however they get their data, that we think that it can eliminate the bias of humans. But in reality, it seems like there are concerns that the AI itself can carry some bias. Can anybody speak to that?
I'll say a little bit, but I want to know what Simon is seeing and what Simon knows. But I don't believe AI can be less biased than we are because it's using everything that we've created up through at least 2021. And humans haven't seemed to crack this ever, actually being inclusive to the other humans around us. So with the prompt engineering, which is more than likely to compound the issue because we're asking through our own biases and all it has access to is all of the bias that we've given it before. I don't think we should assume that inclusion is going to be a natural output of AI.
Huh. Yeah, Simon, have you seen anything?
What are you seeing, Simon?
Britni, I completely agree. The AI is only as good as the data it's trained on. So if you have an AI that's only trained on like survey data from like a super partisan think tank, it's going to give you a lot of answers that magically agree with that partisan think tank. And you also have the issue of hallucinations where it's just confidently wrong. It's like your worst coworker, like super confident but very wrong, in the answer, and so people just automatically believe it. And also, you can have that's just kind of like a data set issue, but you can also have malicious use where people are creating bots and things that are proactively creating false information and bad data and like racism and all these different things are like supercharged when you have all these new AI tools. Like anything can be used for good or for evil or for good or So I mean, look how much misinformation is already being flooded on Twitter right now by bots because all these super powerful AIs are targeting people based on maybe their previous beliefs or previous posts and then just ramping it up with this information. So yeah, I definitely don't think AI is inherently going to make inclusivity more prevalent or include diversity of thought. I think it's going to be only as good as the people using it, and we have to have active. That's kind of where regulation comes in, Deborah. We have to have active ways to both regulate it in some respects to what it's posting, but also recognize, is this a biased, some kind of way to like some kind of arbiter of truth for these AI outputs, which is a nearly impossible problem to solve. But
yeah, and then we've got the issue. Oh yeah, go ahead, Deborah.
No, I'm just gonna say that that's just another place where humans are still gonna be needed, right? Like that's still, and we're not like completely just unbiased, but we have learned through the years, right? Certain things that can help us eliminate bias, and so humans are still gonna be needed in that sense.
Right, and the stuff being packaged up in this brilliant, AI app. Runs the risk of expert bias where we just believe it because this knows everything. So we take it as gospel. So it adds another dimension to that, I think. So, all right, we are out of time. How did that happen? Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and I think these are lined up this way.
Yes, we need to do our 30-second takeaways too.
Yeah. So Britni, 30-second takeaway or your takeaway. Okay. Yep.
My 30-second takeaway is teaching your employees the technical skills of starting to get to know AI will take the edge off of their anxiety and the freak out. It can help calm them down. So make a very concrete goal that everyone will know how to do X thing with AI by X date. That will help you.
Deborah?
I would just add what Britni said, yes, and then also add transparency to the whole thing. So just acknowledge that AI is here, acknowledge that AI is already being used in some aspects of the company, and acknowledge that you are not sure of what that's going to look like in a couple of years, but you're working actively at figuring that out, and that you will, as Simon said, just keep them posted. And just doing that vow of transparency like very early on, I think is going to be really important.
Yeah. I'll go, and then Simon, as our resident expert, can go last. I think that this balance between, yes, it is exciting, and yes, it is scary, and that we don't have all the answers, and we just have to sort of take it one step at a time. I think that just the idea that we just need to really slowly but surely follow this path of AI, because we have no idea where it's going. And if I don't know how many of you caught it, but in the very beginning, Simon said that he's more scared of this than excited about it, I think is what he said. Am I misquoting you, Simon? So if the futurist is saying that he's worried about this, that makes me a little worried about this, but I'm going to try to balance that excitement and fear as we go into the future. Simon.
So I'll leave you with this. What made you successful in the past may no longer help you be successful in the future. It's important to proactively continue unlearning information that no longer serves you. And I'll leave you with one quick future-ready action you can start taking right away. So I recommend you take a future 15. So every week, put 15 minutes on your calendar where you're actively looking at the edges and thinking about the possibilities and thinking about the actions you can take. And I'd even ask you to take it a step further. Put that future 15 on a very busy part of your week. So let's say Monday at 10 a.m. is when you're super busy. Put your future 15 at Monday at 10 a.m. on your calendar, because you're signaling to yourself and to your employees and everyone you work with that the future is changing so quickly. It has to be our priority. So that's what I'll leave you with your final action for the future.
I love it.
So
Well,
powerful.
thank you, Simon, as our resident SME here. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to all of you who tuned in. Our next episode, our next live is not next month. We're taking the month off. We were all kind of jealous of Shannel taking vacation, so we all said we're taking the next month off. But we will be back in September and hope to see you all then. Bye.